Awesome.
Uh, yeah. Hello, everyone. Today we have a conversation from far, far away Australia with amazing Rob Rawson. Thank you for joining us. As always, with you, I'm Vika Predatka, owner and founder of PPT recruitment company who can help you to hire best IT people. And today with us is Robert Rawson. So I will introduce you, Robert, and then you can introduce yourself as well. Okay. So
Sure.
Rob, a serial entrepreneur from lovely Australia, like I already said. Rob is the owner and co-founder of Time Doctor. I know a lot of us know this service, this app as a service and use it. Also, Rob is well known for his book running remote, so I strongly support running remote companies. Yeah, and maybe you don't know, but Rob was he started his career as a doctor and continue with driving marketing agency, the real investment company, and technology startups. So quite
Mhm.
quite an experience. Yeah, thank you, Rob, for joining us
Yes.
today. Maybe you want to add something to my intro.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I've been a lot of different business experience and definitely running a remote team and hiring people around the world, technology people, other people, of all different backgrounds. So I've had a lot of experience in doing that, which is just very interesting. And we were doing that before COVID. We were completely remote for over 10
Yeah.
years. So it was a complete remote experience. And our conference that we have called Running Remote
Hmm.
is actually all about remote work and the book as well. So we interviewed all of these successful remote companies that
Hmm.
have been doing it for many years and that know how to run a successful remote business.
Yeah, I strongly support remote business, and I also start my remote business in 2010. Yeah, in 2010. So we are on the
Mhm.
same page with you. Yeah. Okay, great. So we have a bunch of questions I would like you to answer because people like were waiting our previous broadcast. So may I start with the questions because we have just 1 hour?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, great. Okay, so the first question, who are the key talents in your business currently? Whom are you actively hiring and why?
Well, we're hiring all the time. We just hired some account executives.
Mm-hmm.
We are hiring some marketing team members. We're hiring also on the product team. So we've hired a product manager. So they're either to fill the role. So we have a really an org chart of
Mm-hmm.
where everyone should be. And if we don't have the right person in the right seat, then we hire for that position. So we kind of try to structure the company in theory, what should the structure be, even if we didn't have any people, and then we figure out what people will be the right person for that role. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't do it the other way around. We don't say, here's the people in our company, let's see if they fit. Instead,
Mm-hmm.
we say, what are the positions we need, and do we
Mm-hmm.
have the right people? And if we
Mm-hmm.
don't, then we hire for them.
Mm-hmm. So first you have like an organizational chart, and then you see, and then you're looking for people, right?
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean it's like healthy approach to hire people, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so second question: what is your general hiring strategy for the next several years as a business owner? So, if you have the hiring strategy for years, I mean, now it's quite difficult to have a hiring strategy for years because everything changes very quickly. So, but if you have it, which factors have influenced in it? Have influenced it? What is the geographical and cultural strategy? If you can share it, please.
So our strategy in terms of geographical might be different to other people in that we mostly hire globally. We just look
Mm-hmm.
for the best talent. However,
But
sometimes, yeah, just wherever they are. However, sometimes we do look at specific markets or specific areas because that's where the most talent is found, or because
Mhm,
we want a time zone that is appropriate. So if we want somebody to sell into the United States, if
mhm,
they're really senior, then most likely you need a salesperson in the United States. If they're a bit more junior, it might be possible to find someone in South America or Central America.
Mhm.
but it's they've got to be in the same time zone at least because they've got to be selling at the same time, people actually working. But if they need to travel there, that might be another requirement. Generally, though, we hire worldwide and we're
Mhm.
pretty global in the way that we hire, which is very interesting and unique.
Yeah, you have. It's very interesting to have worldwide because you have different cultures, different approach. But of course, I'm sure all your people who work with you, they have very high work ethics. I think it's the
Yes,
most important thing in hire. Yeah. And
yes.
by the way, when I post that I will do broadcast with you, some people write me that Rob is very strict manager. I say I would say that too because I know.
Okay,
Yeah, I know. I mean, okay, maybe it's just a feeling because I know you from 2011. You remember how we met? We met in like mafia play, right, in Kiev.
right.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, yes, and from it was with Marina, and we started like friendship with Marina, and that's how I know you. Yeah, and now by the way, I've already been in Rob's house for 3 times in Australia. Thank you very much for hosting me. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, so some people told me like it seems like Rob very strict manager. So how do you think? Are you strict, or maybe people think that you are strict? Why do you think people think that you are strict?
I think they would get that perception maybe because I'm not as friendly as I could be. That's something I need to work on in meetings and just a feeling of asking
Mm-hmm.
about everybody and how you're going and having it more relatable. So it's something
Mm-hmm.
I need to work on. But in terms of being strict, in terms of the person achieving
Mm-hmm.
goals and deadlines, I think that's actually a good thing generally.
I,
And I think I probably need to get better at that. I'm not so sure that I'm strict enough. In terms of strict, as in, I mean, people have different ideas of what strict means. So if it means being really harsh, like, oh, you have to work exactly this number of hours, or I don't think I'm strict enough. I'm fairly relaxed.
mm-hmm.
I'm really happy for people to be flexible, and our company is quite flexible in terms of how people work as long as they're getting the work done effectively.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, I agree with you. So I wasn't enough strict. I had a problem after it. So now I'm very support. Now I'm very support to be strict. By the way, and yeah,
Yes.
you're absolutely right. People have different like meanings about what is being strict. Mostly people think that that you are strict if you just want to get their job done, but it's like it's
Hmm.
business. You hire people, you pay
Yes.
them money, so they need to be their
Yes.
job done. Okay, great. So we have another question. It's all questions for everyone who joined our broadcast today, so they're very important.
Okay.
Do you always plan to be a cross-cultural company? What advice can you give to other founders on hiring people from different countries?
I like the idea of being cross-cultural because you're getting different experience, and it is challenging though as well. One of the challenges are in some cultures, for example, in the Philippines and other cultures, they may not speak up as much. They might be more nervous to say what they really think. That can be an issue. There can be very big differences culturally in how people come across. So Eastern Europeans may be more direct. In the United States, they're more indirect. They don't say the point exactly. And that can be misunderstood sometimes. So I think you need to understand the different approaches, but you
Mm-hmm.
also need to standardize to some degree. You need to say, this is generally our style for how we're working, and there are things that are good for all companies. So I believe, for example, it's good for everyone in the company to be able to debate
Mm-hmm.
and to argue with me and with everyone about what's the right direction, what's the right choice. However, when you finish the debate, you have to agree and commit. So you debate, you discuss, you have your opinion heard, and then if you can't all agree together, then the boss or the senior person decides, and you move on and you all agree and commit to that. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
balance that I think is good. Like, you don't want to have a company where nobody is debating and they're too scared to say anything. That's a recipe for failure because they just won't say anything that they think, and they won't actually lead to good decisions and outcome. On the
Mm-hmm.
other hand, it's not good to be debating all the time and questioning everything and never commit to anything because you don't agree to the boss, or I'm not going to do it. That's not
Mm-hmm.
good either. So you have to, even if you're disagreeing, you have to eventually come to an agreement and then commit to that agreement as a company and be aligned and move forward in one direction. So yeah, that's some of the things that come up with cultural impacts, and
Yeah.
how people do that, how people debate is very different in cultures, different
Mm-hmm.
cultures.
And what was the country like you said, like you think the most like different by culture things? You told me that like Filipinos they have difficulties um,
Yeah.
to say directly, right? So
Yes.
what was the country? Maybe you have a lot of no, not a lot of okay, some problems because of this cultural thing.
Yeah. I think all of Asia, not just singling out Philippines, but all of Asia,
Mm-hmm.
there's a little element of saving face. So you don't, it's sometimes on the surface, you're not, and this is the same for Japan, for example, they're always nice, but not really saying something that's getting, maybe not getting exactly to the point. But as I mentioned, the US sometimes is a little bit like that. They're also not always
Mm-hmm.
nice. They're very nice and they're not always direct. So what
Mm-hmm.
happens is they can just not say what they really mean, which is, hey,
Yeah.
that person did a really poor job. So they'll just
Mm-hmm.
say it in a very nice way, and the other person might not understand that actually what they meant is you really messed up. They're saying, you could have done a little better there. What they really meant is you just completely
Yeah.
messed up. So I wouldn't single one culture. I think there's difficulties everywhere, but I think in Asian cultures and Philippines, getting people to speak up is definitely a challenge that I've had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, because they have like very like I would say kind of shy culture, so sometimes they just can't speak directly because it
Yeah.
was built, like for many for ages. Yeah, yeah. And about
Hmm.
US too. Yeah, sometimes sometimes they're so nice that you can't understand you're doing your job well or not, but they're like it's like kind of sugar coated. I would say sometimes.
Yes, yes, sugar coated is a good way to put it. It's not really what you really mean. You're just saying
Mhm.
things in a nice way. What you really mean is something a bit more direct, like, oh, you're really not performing, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. So, but I know the Australians are quite direct, and people from Netherlands as well. So, I mean, yeah,
Yes,
it's I see from my experience, these two cultures are the most direct cultures in the world. I mean, Ukrainian as well, but Ukrainians sometimes can be like a bit rude, but sometimes I mean
yeah,
direct. But I've seen like when we hire for U.S. companies or from European culture companies, just like I don't know, 5 days ago, I had a conversation with the recruitment director of one of international company, and he operates in UK. And he told me, Vika, we hire a lot of Ukrainians, but sometimes it was like they're so direct that sometimes it feels like unpolite. So for us, it should be like a warning
yes,
that we should be
mm-hmm,
direct, but it should be polite in the same way.
yes,
Like I would say.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. How do you envision the AVP of Time Doctor? How do you attract the best experts in the market? So, what is your like unique proposition? You think for your
For
company?
us, well, it used to be remote work, so that was a big
Big deal.
thing that was attracting people, but it's not so big anymore because so many companies are remote. However, it still is an attraction point because that flexibility of not just remote, but being flexible, hiring
Mm-hmm.
from anywhere is still an attraction because a lot of companies are forcing people to go back to the office.
Yeah. By the way,
But
now
other
yes.
than that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have really good pay and good benefits as well,
Mm-hmm.
so that helps a lot. And also just experience of being with a growing company, getting
Mm-hmm.
great experience, great company to work with, great culture. Unfortunately, we
Mm-hmm.
don't meet as much as we'd like to. So being a remote team, I'd love to meet up more often. So that's probably one thing we could improve on. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, for budget and for the difficulty we have
Mm-hmm.
with everyone around the world, we
Mm-hmm.
haven't met as much as I'd like to, but we're working on that.
Um, and I know you hire Ukrainians and you hired. I mean, I know there are some
Yes,
people who work for you like for ages already. Yeah, yeah. So
yes.
so people join you because they like to join the company who is growing, who is like popular, who has great benefits and remote, of course. And you told that you no you meet like I mean with your people like personally, so not like once a year, right? Not more often, yeah.
We at the moment we're meeting mostly the senior leadership team.
Uh
So
huh.
because we have so many countries, we went a
Yeah.
little bit crazy with the number of countries. You know, we have a lot of people in Africa,
Yeah.
Nigeria,
Mhm.
and for them it's extremely hard to get a visa. So it
Yeah.
just became a
Mhm.
little too difficult, and that's
Mhm.
probably something that if I was starting again, I might actually go a little bit less crazy on
Mhm.
how many countries. I might narrow it down so that I might say, look, I'm gonna do Europe and Australia, and I'm going to do these areas of
Mhm.
Europe. So then it just becomes a bit easier to meet in person. That's
Mhm.
one change that I may make, but it certainly has benefits because we've got so much talent and so
Mhm.
global and culturally diverse. But that is
Mhm.
a disadvantage.
Mhm. Okay, great. So, do you know from how many countries do you have now in place?
I don't know exactly, but I know it's over 31. I think it's over 35 countries that we have.
35 countries. Wow, it's a lot.
Yes, yes.
I think you are most diverse company I have ever met. 35 countries, it's a lot. Okay, great, thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the key factors in hiring a person for you and for Time Doctor? Hard skills, experience, or soft skills and mindset? I would say both, but I would love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I think it depends on the job a little bit. So I would generally say soft skills, the attitude and where they're coming from in terms of attitude. Are they really enthusiastic? We have values for our company, which are
Mm-hmm.
self-guided missile, a remote star,
Mm-hmm.
and teamwork titan. So self-guided missile is somebody who's just can work by themselves, even though they're working remotely. A teamwork titan, they work really well as a team, and remote rock star, they're great at working in a remote setting and communicating
Mm-hmm.
remotely. So these
Mm-hmm.
are the values. So if they meet those values, they're probably going to be successful. But there are some jobs, especially
Mm-hmm.
for the more senior jobs, where a bit of experience is necessary and showing that they've done it before. Because if you hire someone who's done it before, it's more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for a lot of development roles, having experience for us has been more important because
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to train people on the job. And I've had an experience where I hired somebody who was really, really good in coding tests,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just incredible. But he actually was living in Bangladesh at the time, and he started with us remotely, and it didn't actually quite work out.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't quite a perfect fit, but he later got a job at Google. So
Uh-huh.
the
Wow.
reason it didn't work out is maybe because we didn't have the right structure environment for him to
Mm-hmm.
grow and for him to have other senior people that he was around. Also, that he wasn't in person; it was all remote.
Mm-hmm.
There
Yeah.
was difficulties there which stopped it from working, and that's an example where he did have the talent,
Mm-hmm.
but he wasn't quite the right fit, maybe in other cultural ways, and also didn't quite have the experience.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes people just not fit you, but they're great. Can fit another company and I
Yes,
mean in
yes.
a different company. Yeah. So when you conduct interviews, do you have soft skill interview first or hard skill interview first, or you have them both?
That is mostly we've been doing, recruiters will do a soft skill first,
Mm-hmm.
but that
Mm-hmm.
has varied as well. I like doing if there's a job that has a lot of applicants
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of talent to draw from, then I like doing a test first.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's an area like developers where it's really competitive and you're going to struggle to find the right person, then you have
Mm-hmm.
to treat all of the applicants very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might want to do just a quick interview first. You don't want to put them through a test before they've
Mm-hmm.
got excited about your company.
Yeah,
So
I
that the
agree.
order depends, yeah, but there's some jobs that like there's a lot of people applying and
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah. No, I
talent out
understand.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
that's
like
cool.
doing the test first because I don't want to do 100 interviews
Mhm.
for that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. When there's a lot of people applying, yeah, it's better to, I mean, like, say people, hello, we are grateful for your like application. Could you please like
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. And from other situation, yeah, I agree because I mean, when you do a short interview first, like first introduction for a company, it's like people become kind of emotionally committed, and after that, they like
Yes.
do your job tasks more like carefully,
Yes.
more
Yeah.
right way.
Yeah.
Hmm. Agree. Okay. What questions do you ask to understand the quality of the candidate? Maybe like your future questions. Quality. I mean,
Yes.
quality
There's
in your way. In your way.
yeah. So there's a little hack question which I use a little bit, which is to find out if they have emotional intelligence. So
How
this is to
how
find
do
out
you
if they're complaining a lot, right? So someone who complains a lot about their past job or their past boss is a red
say?
flag. It's not great. Okay, because
Uh-huh.
even if their past boss was not perfect, they
Mhm,
probably would have a balanced view. Well, it wasn't great, but I like some of the people there. But if
mhm,
they're really complaining a lot about all
mhm,
of their past bosses, for
mhm,
example, how were your last two bosses and how did they treat you? And if they
mhm,
say I was treated really badly, that's a bad sign in an interview. If they
mhm,
say, well, maybe it wasn't so good, but this one was good and this one wasn't, that's okay. That's a balanced response.
mhm.
So that's one little trick question that I do. Then I have questions about the values. So those company values I mentioned, like
Yeah. By
remote
the way,
rockstar, I try to, yes.
how do you check that a person is self-guided?
One way is to see what they've done previously. Like, what have you done out of your own initiative? Like,
Mm-hmm.
ask for examples. What have you done in your past that's just
Mm-hmm.
really,
Just by
uh,
yourself.
just, yeah, it was your idea, you came up with it and you drove it in the company previously. And if
Mm-hmm.
they can't come up with any ideas or if it's not a very solid thing that they came up with, it was just like their business as usual, then that's not a
Mm-hmm.
great idea of self-guided.
Mm-hmm. And you check, and you told about three values. So now you told me how you check self-guided. How did you check? Do you check your other values? Maybe
Yeah,
three questions.
so remote rock star, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
you want to know that they're great at working remotely, but
Did you have
also
experience?
you can get examples of how do they work, how do they communicate remotely, and what's the best communication style. And for Teamwork Titan, you might want to look at how they are evaluating conflict. So, did they have a conflict in the past? How were they
Mm-hmm.
resolving it? It's a
Yeah, how
tricky
they
one, though. It's something that you don't always notice from an interview.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that those emotional issues of if they are saying negative things about their coworkers, that's often a bad sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, kind of maintaining the conflict is very important because when the conflicts arise in the team, yeah, it's very important how
Mm,
people can manage them. I mean, not only managers, but people who are just work, yeah, not only managers, and how they behave and how they manage them in the past. Yeah, it's very important question, I
hmm.
would say.
Yeah. People
Mhm,
that don't have emotional intelligence, they project.
mhm,
So they might be not nice
mhm,
people to work with, but they actually feel like everyone else is terrible to work with. And so that's
mhm,
projection that you have
mhm,
to kind of see how they're projecting on other people, what they're really doing themselves.
mhm, mhm. Okay, I agree. Thank you. Okay. Do you hire? Okay, there is a question from young people. Do you hire
Okay.
people born in 2000? What advice could you give on hiring and working with young people? Because now it's a bit of like articles, so it's difficult to work with people who was born in 2000 because they're like it's difficult to give them feedback because they think that you are harsh to them or something. So, do you have people in your company who was born after 2000 or in 2000?
Mostly we'd have in later 20s. So that would be if it was early 20s, they wouldn't have a lot of experience and they'd have to really prove that they have a lot of consistency
Mhm, mhm,
in their past jobs or their past experience. I actually personally am comfortable hiring people that don't have a degree,
mhm,
but at the stage of company that we have now with over 140, 150 people, we do
mhm,
tend to hire more people that have degrees. It's just like a proof point
mhm,
that they've gone through that. But I think that it's not that necessary as long as the person is really self-motivated. So, for
mhm,
example, someone who's a developer who's self-taught, they've done
mhm,
everything themselves and they're still really good, is actually probably better than somebody who has gone through a degree
mhm,
and
mhm,
is not really self-taught, but they're not quite as motivated as that person who's self-taught will have a lot bigger trajectory. They can go really
mhm,
far because of their level of motivation.
mhm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the question is, yeah, I understand about degree, but I mean now it's kind of like I say, a lot of conversation about that people who was born in 2000 or after 2000 year. It's like they're difficult to manage because they like they don't care about bosses, managers, so they do whatever they want. So,
Mm.
did you have an experience with these people? I mean, they were they
A
like
little bit, but I think it's ultimately about the motivation. If people do what they want, but they're motivated and driven to succeed at the company, and
Mhm,
they have that alignment of the values, then it doesn't. It's great. But if they're
mhm.
not really motivated and they're just doing this and testing it out, and they're going to go to the
Just
next
now,
thing in a few weeks, then yeah. So I think that
yeah.
can happen at any age. It's just
Yeah, I
when you're
agree.
younger, you don't know from their job history as much because you
Mhm,
can't see whether they've done that.
mhm. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, now is a question about you. I will already ask this question in the beginning, but it's like a bit of, what type of manager are you? What are your key people management approaches and why?
Well, I'll tell you how it evolved because previously I was a manager who just told people really what to do, and I was basically directing everything when I started the business. But where I evolved from there is to be a manager that is looking at here's the results we want to achieve. Let's
Mm-hmm,
you got to do whatever you can to achieve that result. So that's a difficult journey that I've had to learn myself.
mm-hmm,
And part of the difficulty is knowing exactly what are the results and is this result okay? Because sometimes the results are not so clear, and sometimes
mm-hmm,
it can be that you disagree with what the person's doing. So what I've had to do is be a lot more accepting of other people's ideas and
mm-hmm,
not come down too hard on telling people what to do and instead really empowering people. But I
mm-hmm,
also needs to be a balance there because sometimes I've gone too far in just accepting what they wanted to do, even though I knew it was the wrong approach. So
uh-huh,
I need
yeah.
to balance, especially for very important decisions that are just critical. I need to make sure that I am not allowing a person to decide the wrong
Mm-hmm,
thing, but most
yeah.
of the time I need to completely empower them
Mm-hmm,
to do what they want to do and to make mistakes as well,
mm-hmm,
and to just manage via their objectives and
mm-hmm,
what their targets are and
mm-hmm,
that sort of thing.
mm-hmm. Okay, great. So everything about management in about the balance. So yeah, you. I mean, for the first thing, like you said, you maybe you behave like surgeon, right? You said people what to do this, do this.
Yes,
Yeah, now
yes.
you become, yeah, during the years you become like more balanced manager. Yeah. Okay. So another question we have. Do you remember the time when your team reached 50 plus people? How would you
Mhm.
describe that period, and what was the most challenging aspect? Now that you have like about 150 people on board, how do you plan to grow and what speed? So it's a two question basically, so you can answer.
Yes, sure. Sure.
Mhm.
So the 50 people and moving from 50 to 150,
Yeah. Mhm.
one of the biggest challenges was that the talent that you need
Mhm.
was quite different. So some of the managers were not capable of going to that next level. Some of them
Mhm.
had to completely leave. Some of them could stay, but would need to hire a manager over them.
Mhm.
So that's a very challenging period that we had, that where we had to replace a lot of the management in the team that weren't quite the right managers to
Mhm.
have. So that was the first challenge. Now, where we are now at more around 150, how do we grow? Well, it's not so much hiring lots more people at the moment,
Mhm.
and it's more making sure that we really have the most talented people in every single part of the
Mhm.
business, and then the
Mhm.
business working and communicating together, having the right systems where people are understanding each other, having the right technical systems as well. So some of our technical systems, like our
Mhm.
HubSpot instance, has some issues,
Mhm.
and so we have to work on that. So all of these things need to be flowing and working well as having the top excellent talent in all of our
Mhm.
areas. And then once we've got that working, then I think we'll be ready more to start hiring more people, and that will be reflected in our growth. So as we
Mhm.
do that, we'll be able to grow more, and then we'll
Mhm.
hire more people because we'll have to hire to manage that growth.
Yeah. Thank you. Because yeah, for most people, like quantity like of 50 people, it's kind of like milestone, and some companies just don't know
Yes,
what to do with this. Yeah, and after
yes,
it's company, usually after 50 people, companies start like growing much faster, and in this case it's very important to manage this growth, because sometimes people just hire and they just like leave people out. So yeah,
yes,
it should be a balance, especially when if you work with venture fund, yeah, and you got the money and you want to hire, and then you just don't have so much work, yeah, for these people, and then
yeah.
you just leave them. Why do you think, I mean, how do you feel about like now, do you think that it is a work crisis in Australia? Now it's kind of work crisis all over the world, in US, in Ukraine, like in Eastern Europe. So how do you feel it about Australia? Do you think it's work crisis or not in Australia?
When you say work crisis, do you mean that
Yeah,
not as
I mean,
much
like
employees?
applicants is more than jobs. So we have like, for example, we have one job ad and we have like 100 applicants.
Mm. I
So
think
not enough
Australia's not
jobs.
too bad. There's a lot of jobs in Australia. So, but
Mhm.
it is in different areas. So the problem
Mhm.
is that you'll have some areas where there's a lot of jobs and not enough applicants, and then other
Mhm.
areas where there's lots of applicants and not enough jobs. And in Australia, in particular, interestingly, it's some of the non-technical or some of the kind of manual work jobs.
Yeah,
There's not
good.
enough people,
Mhm.
and in more middle management, I think you're going to see this in Australia and other developed countries like
Mhm.
the US and in Europe. You're going to see less middle management jobs,
Mhm.
uh, more kind of service industry jobs,
Mhm.
tourism. There's always
Mhm.
demand for those kinds of
Yeah.
jobs, but you're
Mhm.
going to see a fallout, especially with AI and
Mhm.
with the way the economy is evolving. There's going to be less of those jobs, and the jobs that you do have in management, you're going to
Mhm.
have to be very good, very skilled, and
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
excellent at what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for you, I know that for you, it's there is nothing different to hire someone as as a manager from different countries.
Yes,
So I mean, I know that your managers not only from Australia or from US, they're from everywhere.
yes,
Yeah, and I noticed that like when people apply, I mean, when for example, Ukrainian managers apply to US companies as a managers, they mostly don't get a job usually because they prefer their managers. The US company prefer managers who were raised in US, who had experience in US as managers and see.
yes.
So for you, it doesn't matter, right?
For us, it doesn't matter, but I have to say there is some cultural difficulties with people from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
They're, for example, the Philippines. There's a lot of difficulties in the team members progressing to a really senior management role from the Philippines. I've seen that as an example. I think
As a
I've seen
manager.
it from Ukraine, less so in Ukraine, but
Mhm.
I think that for the US, you're right that the US teams often prefer US managers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think partly that's cultural issues and partly
Mm-hmm.
that's the
Yeah.
experience in managing in a US setting.
Mm-hmm.
But partly it might be just comfort and not being familiar with
Mm-hmm.
that person. So once the person actually lives in the US for a few years, it's quite
Mm-hmm.
different, and it shouldn't really be that way, but it seems to me that's often the case that if it's a US company, if they haven't lived in the US,
Mm-hmm.
they're less likely to get management roles and they're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to only get individual contributor roles, and it's going to be hard for that to get
Mm-hmm.
management roles. There's always exceptions though, like you
Of
can
course.
break through that barrier, but it is hard to break through,
But
I'd say.
mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree. Like I asked my U.S. clients why they think why they behave like this, and they told me, like managers from U.S. they are more predictable for us. We know what to expect, and then it's more safe for them. So people
Mm.
usually hire people with whom they feel safe. It's
No,
like,
we have managers in countries outside kind
mhm,
of key Western countries. We do have a lot of our senior managers are in the US,
mhm,
Canada, some in Australia. So we do have that, but we also do have quite senior managers in other countries like Brazil, and yes, so some very interesting other countries out there. So and so we have broken that barrier ourselves a little bit.
mhm, mhm. Cool, thank you. Okay, so I have a philosophical question. Like on a somewhat philosophical note, what is your projection regarding remote work? Will it continue to dominate, or it's going back to hybrid and office model? No, I think I know what you answer, but answer please. So,
I think
and then,
it's going to be very interesting because I think it's still early stages for many
mhm,
companies that have come out of COVID and they still don't know. Some
mhm,
cultures they've already transitioned back to the office. So, for example, India, I think, is mostly back to the office.
yes,
A lot of countries they've transitioned back to the office. In Australia and the US, for knowledge workers, a lot of them are still working remotely and they're still not totally comfortable. The companies don't really know what they're doing and they haven't
hmm,
still figured it out. But the employees want to work remotely, but the companies don't necessarily always want to work remotely, and there's still a tension there. My prediction is that longer term, you're going to have completely office-based companies and completely remote-based companies, and
hmm,
there will be quite a distinction. So it won't be so much hybrid. I think hybrid will be less of a thing
hmm,
because what happens is it kind of tends to what we have is that let's say you're going remote and you have everyone in the same city. So I'm from Sydney in Australia. So let's say you have 10 people and they're all working from home in Sydney. Then one of them moves to another city, but of course you don't want to let them go. They're a great person. So they can't come into the office, 2 or 3 days a week. It's too difficult, but you're going to keep them on the team. Another person moves to another city. Then you decide, well, there's this great person we found who's in India, like we're going to get them on the team. So
hmm.
eventually what you've got is like more what we have, which is that everyone is remote and
Remote, yes,
you're kind of trying to come to the office, but you really can't because they're in different cities.
yeah.
So ultimately, you got to decide: are you in the same city or you're not? And if you're in the same city, I think it makes sense to
Mhm,
go into the office together
mhm,
because there are
mhm,
certain advantages to an office environment.
mhm,
And if you're in the same city, you might as well have those advantages. Maybe it's
mhm,
4 days a week, possibly, but I think even 4 days a week is a slippery slope. You're like, well, we're out of the office one day. Why don't we go out 2 days? Why don't we go out 3 days? Like, we're not really chatting that much.
mhm.
So it's interesting, and I think that's what's going to happen is that it's going to be completely remote or and
Or
global,
completely remote. Oh,
but yes, or completely in the office.
mhm, mhm. So if you have enough employees to live in your city, you make it office. Yeah. If you don't have enough, you make it remote.
Yeah, yeah. If you have people all in the same city, then you
Yeah.
can have them in the office. Otherwise, what's the point? If you have half your people in another city, you're remote anyway, so you're not
Yeah.
getting that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then why? How do you think? Why some companies like afraid to be in remote? So like they told me that big I can control these people. They work from anywhere. I can control. is he start is his work or no. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's all about control issues. So why do you think?
I
Is
think
there?
that is partly why we created the our software Time Doctor, to give more reassurance and comfort
Mhm,
that people are working productively. But also, it's that you need to have really good systems, and you need to know what their work output is supposed to be. So if you're comfortable that
mhm,
what their objectives are, and you know that if they achieve that objective, they're doing a great result, that's great. But in a lot of cases, it's quite hard to do. Like if you're an accountant, is your
mhm,
objective just to finish the accounting? Yes, okay, but
mhm,
maybe how do you assess the quality of that, and how do you know if they really did their job well? And
mhm,
if you're a marketer, how do you know if the targets were set right? So there's so much complications and
mhm,
difficulty in setting targets and knowing if they did things just on an outcome. So that's partly why we have our software, but the outcomes are ultimately the most important thing to look at. Is like, is the person actually
mhm.
producing a great result
Yeah.
for the business? And you need to do that whether they're in the office or remote. It's just that it feels comfortable. It's that, like, the people who are
Mhm.
seeing the person in the office, like, you can see them clearly, and you
Really,
at
yeah.
least know that they're there. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Now, okay, we have like three more questions, or even four. Okay. Do you think recruitment approaches will change in the next few years? If so, how? And what do you think? I mean, what do you mean by recruitment approaches, if you mean something? And do you think will they change or not?
It's an interesting question, right? I do think there will be more global remote recruitment like we have,
Yeah.
because it just makes sense, and most companies are not familiar with it, so they haven't done it yet. But it makes sense to be able to hire, even if you're in the US, to not just
Mm-hmm.
hire from your city, but to hire from the entire US and have people working
Mm-hmm.
remotely. So I think that's going to continue to go up. But in terms of other trends, I know there's definitely trends in AI. I'm not super familiar with how that's going to play out. I think
Mm-hmm.
it can play out quite interestingly. Like, you can have AI involved in all kinds of recruitment
Yeah.
activities in the future, because it's going to get very, very interesting very soon with AI.
Mm-hmm. No, AI is already like checking your resume, matching the vacancy, and do like very
Yes.
simple stuff. Yeah. And about globally, yeah, I agree. Okay, under what conditions would you let go of this current business? So, is there any conditions you let go of this business or no?
Well, that's a difficult one, but I'm excited about where I'm going with the future. But I like new challenges as well. So it's we'll see where it leads. But I think my goal is to grow it and to make the product better and constantly improve it and move it in different and better directions.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not completely adverse to selling it at some point. The business, if it makes sense and it's the right fit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not something I'm doing at the moment.
So, are you going to open another businesses, or you want to develop this business and then I don't know, maybe in 70 or 80 you go to live with bombats?
Uh,
Perfect.
I had different phases in my life, so I actually started a lot of businesses before,
Yeah.
and a little bit lost some of that entrepreneurial drive because it's so difficult starting a new business, and I had many failures. So I've had this one that's quite successful, but
Mhm.
also had a lot of failures. So I'm a little scared of starting a new business, and
Yeah.
find it
Just.
difficult to start from the beginning and build it up, and to build it to the same level that I have now.
Mhm.
Just, it's really a 10-year journey. So I have to think to myself, do I want to go on a 10-year journey? And I've
Mhm.
never had something that's so exciting. It has to make a big difference in the world, something that has a huge opportunity and big difference in the world, in order for me to think about it. And it just hasn't come across my desk to do that.
Mhm. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, what has been the easiest aspect for you in the last 10 years?
The easiest?
Is the easiest, yeah, aspect.
That's an interesting question.
Mm.
So yeah, the thing that has made a big difference for me, I'm not sure if it's exactly the question you're asking, but what's made a big difference is recently I've hired a president who's
Mm-hmm.
or a general manager who's managing all of the team, and that's made my life a lot easier because now I'm managing a lot less people, so I don't have all the same direct reports.
Mm-hmm.
And also, he's doing a better job than I did in managing those people. So it's really made things a lot better. I
Yeah.
think it's going to help us to grow, but also helps to free up some of my time to be more strategic and to be
Mm-hmm.
looking at different areas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand you. Like you feel relief when you hire a manager who will manage the team. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
I got it. And by the way, when you hire him or her, I don't know, it's man, woman, so doesn't matter. But what was the main thing you hire him? What was the like the? So why you choose just
Well, he was really focused on growth, so on
him?
sales and marketing, and
Mm-hmm.
had experience with that before. And I thought there was a good cultural fit.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a big process, and we did use a recruitment firm as well
Mm-hmm.
in the US, and that was quite a difficult, long process, interviewing several people. But we also got the senior executives to interview him as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it was this different candidates that we were talking to, and just felt like it was the right fit, and it definitely was. So I'm really really excited about it. But we have tried that before and it didn't quite work out. So it's sometimes a little bit of trial and error and making sure that they have the right characteristics and the right orientation
Mm-hmm.
as
Yeah,
well.
thank you. Yeah. Okay, and the last question. On what Groundhog Day, Groundhog Day when every day is the
Yes.
same, yeah? Would you prefer to find yourself if there is no alternative?
Oh, well, it has to be with my family, with my wife and my kids, and spending time together, and yeah, just maybe going to the beach or going skiing. I really like skiing.
Okay. Like skiing every day or go to the beach every day?
I don't know. That's a lot of yeah. That's a big difference, isn't it? Maybe
Okay.
skiing in the afternoon and then going to the beach. There'll have to be some special Vancouver. No, that's too cold on the beach. Not many places where you can go to skiing and going to the beach at the same day, but
Yeah.
I'll find one.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Yeah, spend time with your family. Also you have a beautiful family. Of course, you want to spend time with it. Okay. Thank you, Rob. It was like 50 minutes. My pleasure. Thank you very much for all your answers. Thank you for joining us. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, we just have still have 10 minutes. If you have some questions, you can ask them now, or if you don't have any questions, so we will just finish and let Rob spend time with his family. Also, we will do an article after this conversation. So we will do an article. Of course, we confirm it with you before we will post it.
Mhm.
And yeah, so and of course we will have recording. So Rob, if you need a recording, we will send you as well. Maybe it
Okay.
will, yeah, help you for some reason.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any questions now. Maybe because I already asked already also all the questions people asked me before. Yeah, thank you very very much. It was a real pleasure to speak with you today, and have a nice evening in Australia. Say
Okay.
hello to
Okay.
Marina.
Okay. Great to
Very,
chat.
yeah, great
Okay.
to chat. Thank you
Bye.
very much. Bye. Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you.